Hi everyone, so this is the pre-reading video for the story How to Date a Brown Girl, Black Girl, White Girl, or Halfie. This story is potentially a little bit confusing in some ways. I'm just kind of walk you through some of the first few sentences, first couple of paragraphs, let's say, to make sure you're clear about what to do for the rest. So that the rest of the reading will make some sense. And again, we kind of want to think about what the author is telling us here. Just like in the other stories, we said that the author is telling us some things about the characters in the situation, but not necessarily telling us that as directly. And so they're requiring us, they're expecting us to look more carefully at some of the things that they've said so we can go, oh, yeah, you are giving us some of this important information. So the story begins. Wait for your mother and your. I'm sorry. Wait for your brother and your mother to leave the apartment. You've already told them that you're feeling too sick to go to Union City to visit that Tia who likes to squeeze your nuts. Start off right here with it says, "Wait for your mother and brother and mother." That sounds like a command, right? Somebody telling somebody to do something. And then it says, You've already told them. You? Who are we talking to? Tia in Union City? Tia, by the way, if we don't speak Spanish, is aunt. Um, what's going on here? And what's happening in the story, partly because of the summer, we don't have as much time to talk specifically about what's called point of view. But point of view is who is telling the story and how they're telling it, who they're telling it to. And in this case, we've got what's called the second person. This person is writing, telling the story as if we are involved in the story, as if they're talking to us, right? You've already told them, giving commands. Wait. Who's supposed to wait? Well, you're supposed to wait, right? You wait for your brother and mother to leave the apartment. You've already told them that you are feeling too sick. And so that's kind of a strange thing that we do that, but one of the things that it does is it kind of brings us into the story. It makes us feel like we're there. This person's talking to us like this thing is actually happening to us, and it makes it feel like we're actually involved. So it makes us in some ways more emotionally connected to the story otherwise. So just to keep in mind that that's something that's going on, that we've got that you in there. We also got Spanish words thrown in here like tia, as we said, which means aunt. And so we can see that this person is going to be an Hispanic background because he's going to drop in this kind of language. We can see that it says Union City, which is in New Jersey. So we're getting a sense of where this person is going to be living. You're feeling too sick to go to Union City to visit. That gives us this sense that this person is probably young enough that the mother expects him to go to certain places, but he has to figure out how to get out of it, right? Oh no, I'm too sick to go visit family, right? Some of us might have done that before, and that sounds like something that a teenager might do, right? And so information about who this character is in those first couple of sentences, even though the person hasn't told us that, right? The author hasn't told us that directly. So we're supposed to be able to figure some of that out. Then we go down here. Even though your mom's knows you ain't sick, you stuck to your story until finally she said, "Go ahead and stay, malcriado." Right? And so malcriado is kind of like a spoiled kid, right? And so the idea that he is going to be somebody who is, again, probably a teenager and trying to get away with something. Mother's like, whatever, I'm done with you. I don't want to argue with you about this, even though I know that you're faking. And so, again, that gives us a sense of how we're supposed to be, gives us some background information about how we're supposed to be thinking about the character. Then if we go down here a little bit, next paragraph, it says, clear the government cheese from the refrigerator. If you don't know what government cheese is, maybe 30, 40 years ago, they'd still do it somewhat, but not as much. 30, 40 years ago was a rather popular program where the government would buy cheese from dairy farmers, and then it would give it to people who were on welfare, right? And it was called government cheese, came in these big and it would just say, USDA surplus cheese or something like that, it would say on it. And so everybody knew it was what government cheese looked like because it wasn't, it didn't say Kraft on it or something like that. So he says, clear the government cheese from the refrigerator, right? So this tells us that our character does have government cheese, which means his family's probably on some kind of public assistance, right? Some kind of welfare. If the girl's from the terrace, right, so he's waiting for this girl to come over, stack the boxes behind the milk. If she's from the park or Society Hill, hide the cheese in the cabinet above the oven, way up where she'll never see it. And so we're hiding the government cheese, right? Well, why might we be doing that? Well, maybe we're potentially embarrassed of that. Especially if the girl is from one of these places, maybe that might be particularly embarrassing. They're from a particular area that maybe they look down on people who get assistance. And so we're already understanding something about this person's socioeconomic background by this, but we haven't said, hey, this is a person who lives in kind of a poorer neighborhood, his family gets government assistance. We're just going to say, look, clear the government cheese from the refrigerator, and we're supposed to infer that, right? Leave yourself a reminder to get it out before morning, or your moms will kick your ass, right? Don't leave it up above the oven. The cheese will go bad if it's not in the refrigerator. So of course you'll be angry. Photos of your family in the campo, especially the one with the half-naked kids dragging a goat on a rope leash. The kids are your cousins, and by now they're old enough to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So these are embarrassing pictures in the campo, that's like out in the country, right? The Spanish for out in the country. Half-naked kids dragging a goat on a leash. That what we might expect in some place. I'll just let you know. You'll find out later that this kid in the story is from the Dominican Republic, and so this is something that we might see out in the country in the Dominican Republic. Kids with a goat, right? And they're just hanging around outside. It's hot there, so they might just be wearing nothing but their shorts. That's embarrassing, though. So you take that down, and so we can understanding something about his background by looking at that. As we said, the kids are your cousins. By now they're old enough to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Why is he doing what he's doing? Why is he hiding that? I think we can figure out why we might be wanting to hide that. And then it says, hide the pictures of yourself with an afro. And again, afro is going to be an African-American hairstyle, which is going to be, again, that rather fluffy kind of hair. And so we want to hide that, right? And so we understand that he is going to be, he's Dominican, as I've said. We'll find that out later. But specifically, he's going to be of African descent, and so he wants to hide those pictures of the afro. Why might he not want girls to see that? Then he says, make sure the bathroom is presentable. Put the basket with all the crapped-on toilet paper under the sink. Spray the bucket with Lysol. Some of you may not know, but in many places in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba, they do that as all this. You don't put toilet paper in the toilet. Instead, used toilet paper goes into a garbage can. Many people, even though they come to the United States where you can flush toilet paper, in those places you can't flush toilet paper because the sewers aren't as good. But still, some people, when they come to the United States, they might not flush the toilet paper because that's not something that they're used to. So, but again, this person might be embarrassed about that, right? They use toilet paper in the bucket, and so they're going to hide that. But again, we're getting some information about this person's background, how he feels about himself. He seems to be embarrassed about some things about that's going on in his past, in his background. Let's say not his past, his background. We understand that his family is not originally from the United States. We understand that they're of African descent. So we've got a lot of that information without the narrator specifically telling us that. And so as you go through, look at the rest of the story and see how through these commands that we get about what to do. Here's what to do. Put the basket with all the crapped on toilet paper under the sink, right? That's a command. Through these commands, we're learning something more about who the character actually is and the situation in which he finds himself. And then you can actually even think about why have it in commands. The author could have written this story in any way, but decided to write it as these commands. And what does that do for us? But hopefully that'll at least give us some sense and some background right there at the beginning, where we understand something about what's going on with the story.